getting passed up for that promotion or that raise? Or we can even say, why are you not earning the income you deserve to earn? Well, in order to answer this question, let's do a little bit of detective work if you're open to it, because I did my homework and I want to share the data and the drama that I realized about this after having worked with hundreds of people who, in a way, had exactly this problem. And by the way, very often had already done so many things to try to fix this. They've done self-development courses, they've read all the right books, they did the motivational videos, they did the whole feel the fear and do it anyway, Gary Vee or Alex Hormozi, many of David Goggins, right? So much interesting advice about this out there. And I discovered, again, after these people had already invested so much time, money in trying to figure out what the real problem is and why is it that I keep getting overlooked, and then these same professionals that, by the way, let's just put something out there. This is so important. I promise and guarantee you, most likely, okay, most likely, it has very little to do with your education, your skill set, whether you have a college degree or not, whether you finished high school or not, has little to do with the books you read, most likely. And chances are, because I've heard this excuse too, oh, the job market is weak right now. Nobody's hiring. People are not getting paid, or people don't want to pay. And if that were true, if that were really true, nobody would be having a job right now. And yet, there are people out there that have jobs and hold jobs and keep jobs, and they are getting paid. Probably many get paid more than they deserve, but that's not for me to decide. So, what's really going on? Could it be that it's because you're quiet, right? And quiet people get ignored. But actually, let's go even deeper. Remember, I said we're going to get into a bit of investigation here. Okay, why might you be quiet? Well, what if actually at the core of this is that nobody has taught you yet how to communicate on behalf of your worth and your value? Could that be? Because this is the stuff. This stuff is not yet learning, having learned how to communicate on behalf of your value, is the stuff that keeps people quiet in meetings, that keeps people shy in the boardroom, that keeps people afraid from asking for the sale, that keeps people running away from negotiations and confrontations when they actually should be running toward them, that keeps people afraid to ask for what they're worth. And we could go on and on and on about all these different high stakes situation, right? Where like in your mind, and you're like, I know that I should show up as my best self. I know that I need to shine. I know that I'm qualified for this job. I know that I could nail it. I know that I'm like the best candidate. And logically, all of this, but then somehow when it comes time, right? So often my clients will say, oh, I've been waiting for the perfect moment in that meeting, but that perfect moment never came, and then I never said anything. And then, of course, I was overlooked once again. Yeah. And this happens every day, or at least several times a week. And that, you see, that is the problem. That is the real problem here. Does that make sense? Right? And just when you know that you need to, right? That's when all of a sudden the fear kicks in, the anxiety kicks in, the panic. Oh, what if I sound weird? What if I say the wrong thing? What if I mess up? What if, right? And then all the what if worst case scenario kick in, and your mind now is flooded with all the crap, excuse me, instead of feeling confident and certain in yourself and convinced and being able to speak on behalf of your value. You see, this is the stuff. And this is sort of like nobody, by the way, it doesn't matter whether you went to high school, you finished college, you even have a degree, you read all the right books, you might have even read the sales books, books on influence, persuasion, right? All those things. You could be the best salesperson. You might know how to sell a pen. You might have the script. All, but what if you don't have the confidence? The confidence to be like, no, you know what? I am going to take that person, I'm going to sell that pen, and I'm going to convince them. Right? So that no sales book talks about how to, before you even get on that sales call, before you even go on to that job interview, before you even ask for the raise and the praise and the promotion, before all of that, you know what has to happen? You must be so convinced in yourself. You must have such conviction and clarity on your value that nobody could possibly talk you out of that confidence. Like you have to become so unshakable, unstoppable, unbreakable, bulletproof, and now show up to the meeting. Now tell me if that's not a before and after picture. Imagine if you could have the conviction, the clarity, the confidence, the comfort in your, like, to be like, no, you know what, I'm going to show up to that interview and I'm going to nail it, and I'm going to convince them that I am right. Imagine, and this has nothing to do with bravado, please. This has nothing to do with arrogance. This has all to do with a quiet, sincere feeling of confidence. This is about self-worth. This is about value, self-respect, valuing yourself. Knowing that you already have all the right bells and whistles behind your name or in front of your name, wherever that might be. Because quiet gets ignored. Quiet doesn't end. No, this has nothing to do with smart. You could be the smartest person in the room. If you stay quiet, if you stay invisible, if you are like a church mouse, that's just not going to land. Not in this day and age. No matter what AI is out there, AI is not going to be able to fix this. You see? And this is where, I remind people, it's the people that ask get paid. The people that speak up are the ones that get the deal, right? The people that know how to own their value and speak on behalf of their value are the ones that make the sale. They're the ones that generate the income they deserve. They're the ones that also reap the recognition, the respect, the praise that they deserve, the social status. People start to look up to them. Why? Because they know how to communicate on behalf, right? And those are the people that get rewarded. Now, I know this is not convenient. This is not pleasant. This is certainly not for the people that think they're shy or I'm an introvert. I've heard, and by the way, if you think, well, I'm just not that person because I'm shy, because I'm an introvert, that's just not my personality. I'm promising you that is something you have been talking yourself into. That's an old story and not a good one. It may be true up until now, but first of all, let me show you how that is not true. Because my guess is just a wild guess. When you're with your friends, when you're with people that you're comfortable with, you probably light up the whole room. So, what happened to shy? Oh, not there. That's my point, right? Because if you were truly shy, you would be always shy. And my guess is you're not always shy. And so that shyness only shows up when the stakes are high, when you might feel uncomfortable or nervous or anxious. And then of course, that reflects in our body language, it reflects in our tonality, it reflects in our voice, it reflects in the energy, and then of course it impacts everybody in the room. And that's why we must start with helping you change that, right? Because if we have a shaky voice, if we show up with insecurity, feeling inadequate, like it's called the imposter syndrome, unfortunately, everybody in the room is going to sense it and smell it, and it's just not very attractive. And that's not what's going to get you paid, or it's not what's going to get the job, right? Because Obviously, imagine if you were a boss, if you were in the position of hiring, if you were the one who's like, hey, you got to pick the right candidate. Who are you going to pick? The person who shows up insecure, has like, oh, I don't know, maybe I qualify, maybe I don't know if my credentials are right, right? Or are you going to hire the person who's like, no, I know what I bring to the table. I've done it hundreds of times, right? Who are you going to hire? What energy are you going to feed off of, right? And so, by the way, here's the good news. It doesn't matter if you think that you're shy, if you think that you're an introvert, none of those things are actually the problem. The solution, right? Here's what we can cause, here's what we can do. We can actually help you become this person. We can help you not only speak on behalf of you with conviction and with clarity, but we can also help you install this confidence that you need, right? Especially during those high stakes negotiations, confrontations, the sales calls, the objection handling, all the ways, you're like, oh my God, those intimidating moments, right? Especially then, you want to show up like a pro, you want to show up like a rock star, and you deserve to show up like a rock star because you already have all the right credentials, you already have all the right accolades. And by the way, the only reason you're not there yet is because there's a subconscious block that is causing, unfortunately, this commotion that is not serving you, that is causing you to feel intimidated, causing you to feel anxious, causing you to kind of like play small or stay stuck. And remember, you can change that. You can, and by the way, just FYI, no, I'm not going to ask you to read another book or take another course, because confidence isn't about thinking and logic. It's about training. And confidence is also not something that is, it has nothing to do with logic. It has to do with doing. It's about an experience. And that is something anybody who wants to can learn. And this is a matter of reprogramming the subconscious. It's really technically speaking, it's really as simple as that. And anybody who wants to do that can do that, because at the end of the day, what's going on here subliminally underneath the surface, they're actually, believe it or not, look, you probably know this, our subconscious controls 95% of our thoughts, beliefs, actions, conclusions, behaviors, triggers, or anything that's on autopilot, right? And so if there is something in our subconscious that is sabotaging us, then we need to go to that level to be like, hey, wait a minute. Where is that little piece that we need to tweak, that we need to fix, so that it can no longer cause this kind of a commotion? And then that's the difference that makes the difference, because then regardless who is in front of you, behind you, you can no longer be triggered unless you want to. You will show up as the best version of you, this first class, world class, creme de la creme version of you. So let me just check if we have any questions here, anything that is important. Let's see. Very good. So, yeah, so that's where it's at. And also remind you, this is what I help people do to help them sort of install this rock star confidence that is monetizable, right? That will help them create the impact they want and the income. And now we have alignment. We have alignment between the conscious and the subconscious mind. And that is pure gold. And I'll never forget, I was watching an Alex Hormozy episode, and he just framed it, as he always does, in such a congruent, harsh, obviously, but very, very appropriate way, if you ask me. He said, if you're not speaking up, you're not selling. And if you're not selling, you're going broke. And it is a harsh reality, Because at the end of the day, let's think about it. Almost every conversation we have is kind of a sales conversation, because we're always here to either convince people or try to have people see our side, or try to influence them, or try to persuade them somehow, or try to you know and so for that, right, for us to be able to do that, it's but again, remember, this is beyond sales skills. This is like couple of notches down, leveling down, because in order to even be that confident salesperson or professional, or asking for the raise or asking for the praise or promotion, before that has to be this unshakable, unbreakable, unstoppable self-confidence that will trigger you the way you want it, so you can show up comfortable, and you can show up calm, and you can feel grounded and centered, and you can finally speak on behalf of your worth the way you deserve to be spoken about. And again, yeah, this is about self-esteem, completely. And unfortunately, there are no college courses, there are no degrees, there are no, not even PhD, right, that teaches people how to sell on behalf of their value, how to speak on behalf of their value, how to, this is tragic. Tragic. Yeah, the person is a great practitioner. They're really skilled. They're really good at what they do. They're, very good in their craft. But if they can't even get a job, then those things, I mean, of course, they mean something, but not yet, because I can't even go out there and work yet. So that must, like, let's not put the cart before the horse or something like that, right? So that's a priority, if you ask me, right? And considering that once you fix this problem, it can never, ever, ever hurt you again. It can never, ever show, like, you can never be basically, what do you call it, triggered by this ever again. And it doesn't matter who these people are, what their title is, whether they're an authority figure, whether they're a lawyer, doctor, whatever. I've heard it all before. I heard so many of my clients say, I'm intimidated by this and that person. When my boss shows up, I just shrink, right? And so imagine if that no longer could affect you, and instead you truly show up feeling pride and feeling joy and feeling so full of yourself, but not with bravado and arrogance, but rather like self-love, self-worth, self-esteem. And I agree. Our value comes from God. True. That is absolutely true. And the tragedy comes in if we don't see that. If I don't even see my value, if I don't know how to speak on behalf of my value, if I don't know how to present on behalf of my value, who sees the value? So first, you must see your own value before you can actually convince other people, right? And this is often, again, where these inadequacy issues and imposter syndrome and feeling inferior somehow shows up. This is a very unpleasant and expensive problem, if you ask me. And the good news is we can fix it. This is what I help people with. And most people will say to me, this was life changing, as it should be. As it should be. There should be some proof in the pudding. There should be some evidence for you to be like, oh, my dear, I remember me before and all the ways this has caused me problems. And now I can see my after, right? There has to be a contrast. And there always is. Because otherwise, what's the point? Anyhow, if you obviously want to take this conversation further, feel free to reach out, and happy to speak with you. And I'm just going to stay here for another moment, see if you have any questions. And if not, I will look forward to connecting with you next time. Thanks for your time. Thank you for joining me here. I hope you got something out of it. And again, a lot of times what I see is people really beating themselves up about this and berating themselves and being hard on themselves, right? I should be further along. And that attitude doesn't really serve. Instead, we got to look at, hey, what is causing this? How can I fix this? How can I change this? Am I even be willing to fix it? And now, Yeah, we can make something good happen, right? So thanks again for joining me. I'll see you next time. Enjoy the rest of your day.